Hey, security peeps. We are back again with another edition of Breaking Into Cybersecurity 2.0. 2.0, which is our leadership series. And we are here with some wonderful people today. I am Renee Small, cybersecurity super recruiter, helping wonderful and amazing cybersecurity talent get into organizations and helping leaders hire awesome cybersecurity talent. My co-host, Chris Foulon, is here. Say hi to everyone, Chris.
Hey, everyone.
Chris is one of those amazing talents that okay. Sarah. So we have a wonderful person on today, Sarah. Sarah Moffat is a leadership coach. She is the founder of Leading Ladies, helping women get into leadership opportunities and grow into their into additional opportunities. She also works with men too. She does some amazing things in the cybersecurity space. So Sarah, go ahead, introduce yourself, and let's kick it off. Start talking about leadership.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here. So as you said, I'm Sarah Moffat. I'm the founder and I'm a leadership coach with my company, Leading Ladies. I'm also senior advisor for cyber workforce management for the federal government, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We are talking about leadership development. So, and I was hoping today we could talk about like high performance and how that works with leadership. So my company, Leading Ladies, is a professional coaching organization. And our mission is to empower women and inspire change. I do coach men sometimes, but it is mostly women. And that's just because, we know in cybersecurity, I think the ratio now is like 5 to 1. 5 men to 1 woman. And so that's not cool. It's still not cool. And it will keep being not cool until we can change it. And so I work in cybersecurity. One of my sisters is in law enforcement. My other sister is a pastry chef. So all 3 of us ended up in these male-dominated industries. And what I have found is that you need a different set of skills as a woman to succeed in these kind of industries. So that's the kind of thing that I like to talk about. I'm a big proponent of mentorship, and developing your own roundtable. And so we can talk about that. There's just a whole host of things that we can talk about. But the main thing is that I'm passionate about inspiring people to lead their lives, to actually, I think so many of us live the same year over and over again, and we call it life.
Groundhog Day.
What's that?
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day, Groundhog Year, right? You just keep doing it over and over again. And so what do you do to step up your game so that you're actually living into your purpose? And that's a big deal for me.
That's awesome. So Sarah, can you talk to us about, I love when I met you and we were chatting and we talked about your TED Talk and we talked about, that leadership roundtable and how people need a court. You need a round table of folks to help you. Please talk to the audience about that. I think that's such it's so insightful. And as much as we talk about mentorship, Chris and I are continuously talking about mentorship. Your perspective and what you bring to the table in that TED Talk was amazing. So please talk to us about that.
Thank you. So I did. I am one of the first completers of the TED Masterclass, which launched about 2 years ago. And the talk that I did for them was called Modern Mentoring, How to Develop a Roundtable as Legendary as King Arthur's. And the foundation is basically, you've got King Arthur. Well, you've got Arthur, right? This 15-year-old scrawny kid, adopted, nobody likes him. His big brother Kay is like, this big brawny guy. He goes to the Sword and the Stone. All of the big guys, all of the big leaders, the famous ones are trying to pull the sword from the stone. Nobody can do it. And up comes scrawny Arthur, 15 years old. Nobody gives a crap about him. And he pulls the sword from the stone, right? He doesn't know that Merlin has enchanted it. And it's been enchanted so that only the right wise king can pull the sword from the stone. So one of the first things that Merlin, who is, he is Arthur's like big mentor, one of the first things he has him do is establish a round table. And I think that is a tremendous leadership lesson for all of us because when we think about King Arthur, the best part of his legend is the round table. So all of us are we're trying to hopefully create legendary lives. Like, if you're not waking up every day wondering what you're leaving behind, then you're not thinking forward head enough. So Arthur, he finds these knights, these men to surround him, and he's looking for people who are humble and meek and brave. And meekness isn't a word we hear a lot these days, but this guy, Patrick Lencioni, he wrote a book and he said the best team members are humble, hungry, and smart. And I think that's the modern day equivalent of what you're looking for at the Roundtable and what you need to be yourself. So looking out, and what do you look for in mentors, and how do you establish it? Should I shut up now and let you ask a question, or?
No, keep going.
So Arthur could not set up a roundtable if he did not know what his values were. Bottom line. So that's something when I'm coaching, that's one of the first questions I ask is, what are your values? What do you stand for? And then once you have your values, then you know what your mission is. And then you can invite people to mentor you, to be at your roundtable, because you know what you stand for, you know where you're going. And then you can say, hey, I want you to take this journey with me. I want you to partner with me. The biggest thing is to humble yourself. And that's hard when you're young. It's because you think you know everything. But to humble yourself and say, I need people to come with me. And then you develop this legendary roundtable of people that are so freaking invested in you that they only want to see you succeed. And that's so powerful.
How do you help them figure out what their values are? They might think they know what their values are, but how do you help them truly define what they are to help define their mission so that they can continue down that journey?
I actually do an exercise with my clients where we walk through, but for folks that are just, wanting to do this on their own, you can go to Stephen Covey's website, and he's got a whole values exercise where, you can start to think about what are your values. So like mine are to empower, to educate, and to engage, right? Those are true for me in my personal life and in my professional life, in all walks, because I'm always trying to educate others, but also educate myself. That's a founding principle of who I am. And then obviously empowering myself, empowering my children, my child, empowering other people that I meet, and really engaging in life in general and getting people engaged. So those are my core values. And I know that's what I stand for. So I know when I'm setting up my mission, those are the three most important things to me. And, you could use, I also have 3 words. I have an alarm.
Do you use any other affirmations, or recommend that your clients use any other affirmations throughout the day to help keep them on track?
I do. I actually have 4 alarms that go off. So I'm a big goal setter. This is something that I think is my superpower, is setting and achieving goals. So this year in 2020, I have completed 5 grad school classes. I've lost 76 pounds while running my company, working full time, and having my son home with me. So one of the big things for me is to always be fit, healthy, and strong. So that's a reminder that I get at 2:00, right? At 2:00, everybody's reaching for their cup of coffee because they're tired. You've been up all day. So for me, it's remember to be fit, healthy, and strong. I'm not going to reach for something unhealthy. I'm going to get up and go for a walk. And then I have reminders to be an exceptional leader and to be an exceptional mom. The mom one comes up at 6 when I'm tired.
Yeah, I need those reminders all day. Dan is saying, oh man, I've been through exercises for companies creating a list of values, but I never thought of sitting down and doing this for myself.
It's Ben, it's so great because what it does is it removes anxiety from your life. And that sounds weird, but for me, it's like you can agonize over a decision and then you can second guess yourself for weeks afterwards. But if you make your decision based on what your values are, then you know that you chose right. And it just eliminates so much. Like, should I take this job? Is this the right promotion for me? Should I do this with my kids? Does it align with your values? Yes or no? If it does, go for it. Is it going to get you where you want to go? Is it part of your mission? Then you can say it an emphatic yes. And if it doesn't, then you can say, sorry, not for me.
And how does that play into influencing those that you lead? What are the best ways to pass that on to them so that you can gain their influence?
So influence it's actually really easy to gain if you are are true to who you are and you know what you stand for, I think. So influence, ultimately, at the end of the day, if you look at any definition of leadership, leadership is influence. It's influencing yourself. It's influencing others. So if you are true to your goals, to your values and to your mission, then you easily are going to be able to accept things that you know that you can complete, right? So then you know that you are adding value, that you are working out of your strengths, and then people know that they can come to you for those things. So that's a big part of it. But also being humble, hungry, and smart. Like being humble means that you're going to ask for help. And for those of you who don't know this, asking for help is literally one of the best ways to gain influence with anyone. It sounds counterintuitive, but if I call you, Chris, after this, and I say, Chris, I am like struggling to find a new job, and I know that you have the skills and expertise. Would you do me this huge favor and just take a look at my resume or look at my LinkedIn profile and just give me one tip? Then you help me out because I asked so nicely, and I'm a lovely person and you're a lovely person. And then you're like this much invested in my success. And if I come back to you and say, what you did so helped me, I was able to do this, then you're, this invested in my success. And we keep building influence with each other. And we're leading each other. And that's, if you implement that at work, it's a great thing to do. Everybody always wants to be like the smartest person in the room, and nobody's willing to say, can you unpack this for me? I need a little bit of help with it. And then everybody's like, oh, sure, let me help you out.
So it's really that asking for help, being humble, being, taking a step back, being in that situation to be able to really, get this group to understand yourself, understand your values, and then move forward with getting that mentorship team. Exactly.
And, part of that is it's being humble and being hungry. And that hunger is a hunger for knowledge. When you're hungry, you're going to listen, you're going to be teachable, and you are going to be, am I breaking up still? Are we good? Okay.
No, you're good.
Being that hungry person, you're going to go for those. You're going to be the yes person, right? Somebody is going to come to you and you're going to say yes, because you know what aligns with your values, and you're going to go for it. And that's that tenacity, that hunger is it sets you apart as a leader, honestly, very easily.
So another question came in, and it says, loving the conversation points. I've experienced some challenges when it comes to humility. I am a servant leader. Humility and leading by example is at the core of my values.
Awesome.
However, I've seen that my humility is sometimes taken for granted. Instead of being valued as my strength, it is considered a weakness. Any thoughts on how you could reverse this perception, or how to deal with change when change is not possible, or how to deal with when change is not possible?
Yeah. I'm curious, for this LinkedIn user, can I just ask a question? Are you a female or a male? Can we ask that?
Yeah, you can. The only thing is, it looks like
maybe they're still watching.
They might.
Sometimes the questions come in a little delayed as well.
Oh, okay. Well, I would just be curious to know the answer to that. But I think servant leadership is really one of the best kind of leadership styles, and because what you're doing is you are helping to get obstacles out of the way for others so that they can succeed. There is a difference between being humble and being unconfident. I don't think that's the word, but that's what I'm thinking of. You can be confident and humble at the same time, right? If you think about King Arthur, there's no way that his humility interfered with him leading into battle, crushing, he went on these big quests. So you need to be confident and exude confidence, but the humility comes in when you admit when you don't know something, or when you are willing to say, this isn't my strength. This is Renee's strength, or this is Chris's strength. I'm going to allow them to lead in this situation. So I think identifying ways that you can exhibit more confidence is probably going to be a great step for you. And if you feel like Sometimes it's hard to change. If you've been in an organization for a long time and they just perceive you this one certain way, sometimes you just got to go somewhere else and start a new perception for yourself. But yeah, I would say work on confidence. Maybe take a couple speaking engagements, do some things where you're maybe mentoring others, where you can build your confidence that way and show that your confidence and your competence. So that would be my suggestion. I hope that's helpful.
For those that you coach, do you also have to differentiate management versus leadership? Oftentimes I've noticed that, especially in the younger generations, there's that they don't understand the difference between leading someone and managing someone.
Yeah, that's a tough, so I'm finishing my master's degree in management and leadership. And it's funny because it's very differentiated. When I think of management, I feel like you're managing resources, you're managing products, you're leading people. So you always want to lead people and you want to manage the resources. And so you're managing time, you're managing hours, you're managing products, you're leading people. And leadership is, again, it's gaining influence with people. And that's the core of what it is. It's showing them that your values and vision align with the company's, and it's getting them to align to see how their personal values and mission are aligned with the goals of the team, and really creating that strong connection so that they are getting, they feel good about the work. They feel like they're contributing in a positive way. And that's something that I think is super, super important for any leader, is to figure out how to ensure their team knows, you're just working on this small part of the puzzle, but this is the big impact that you have, because that helps a lot.
So Sarah, I'm sending a note to people because it looks like there was some kind of challenge with LinkedIn Live, but we're still live on YouTube.
Oh,
so I'm sending all the people on LinkedIn to YouTube.
Okay.
So that's why you see me doing all of this. But we're going to have you back because there were so many great questions starting to come in on LinkedIn.
And then they disappeared, huh?
Yeah.
I have a question for you while Renee works on that. So we talked about high potential leadership, and for the most part, we've been discussing leading those that are below you. How do you flip the coin and then now work to lead those above you, say your CEO, say you're below them, and gain influence on them so that you can get your message across and deliver on in your role?
That's an amazing question. So Brendan Burchard, I don't know if you have ever heard of him, but he talks about the greatest ways to impact, to gain influence. And he's got this model where the first thing that you do is you talk about, you acknowledge where people are now. So let's say I'm talking to my boss, Chris, and you've got a problem. The first thing I'm going to do is acknowledge. That's A. Acknowledge. I'm going to say, I understand you're having an issue with this and this and this, and I'm going to let you know that I understand what the issue is, whatever the issue is, whatever the problem is. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my emotions. I'm going to talk to you about, affect. That's the second A. I was trying to think of what it is. I'm going to speak with affect. I'm going to speak with emotions. I understand that you're having this, and this is how it's making you feel. This is the outcome. This is what's happening. And then finally, I'm going to do the aspiration. So it's acknowledge, affect, and aspiration. And the bottom, I'm going to talk to you about what the outcome is going to be. And that is a great way to influence and persuade. And another great thing that you can do is use stories in there, right? So storytelling is a great way to influence up, get people to understand where you are, sell your ideas using stories. But I find that influencing up, and then also being the person that they can count on. Like in my organization, people know everywhere I go, I'm the creative one, right? Everybody knows that. So if you've got a hard problem, I like to say, if you got a problem, I'll solve it. I'll figure out a way. So, and everybody knows that. Hey, you know what? Go ask Sarah, because I have built influence in that space. I have set myself apart in that area. So saying yes based on your values, making sure you're showing your superpower so that people come to you. And that's influence, right? If somebody knows they can't solve a problem, they come to me, that means that I have influence over that individual in solving their problem. Does that answer your question, Chris?
It does, and I think oftentimes, because we've been focused on individuals looking to break in, they've always been on the lower side of their career.
Yeah.
So they're always looking for ways to progress their career. And most of the times that means helping those above them see the problems that are occurring and persuade them to the solution that you're recommending.
And so I've dealt with a lot of my clients are not usually entry level, because entry level people don't usually hire coaches, but in that, you know, mid to senior range, or in mid approaching senior, and then and then senior approaching executive level, right? So I kind of see those are the tiers. And one of the things I'll always say is, it's just like in marketing or being an entrepreneur. And basically that's what you are. You're a little entrepreneur where you are. Look for the pain point and figure out how to solve it. Where is the gap in your team that you can fill? And that is going to gain you a huge amount of influence very quickly, very quickly. So if there's, you know, I mean, it's something as stupid as, and again, humble, like at my work, we have this drawer full of cords and it's a disaster. You know, it looks like just a pan full of snakes. And one day I sat down and I fixed the cords, and everybody's like, this is going to take forever. And I'm like, it's really probably going to take 10 minutes. And I did it. And it was a humble thing to do. And everybody knew that I was willing to sit on the floor and work this stupid thing out. And you know, then you're a problem solver, right? This small thing. Hey, remember when she did that? So there's a ton of ways that you can set yourself apart, but just find the problem and then go for it with tenacity.
So Sarah, you bring up such a valuable point. So I talk about that a lot with resume writing, recruiting, interviewing, being the solution, being the problem solver, finding the pain point in some of these organizations, and going through with the interview process, like you're talking about with leadership and promotions, and within the current situation you're in. But when you're looking up, it's very similar to what I tell people when they come and they ask about, you know, what a resume should look like, what they should be doing, how do they get in, how are they able to influence this leader to look at them as a viable candidate for the role. And it goes back to the same exact thing, being that problem solver, seeing what is, from gathering the information, doing the research, trying to figure out what it is that they're having challenges with, and how you can be the one to solve the problem, because you've either done it before, because you have creative ideas like you, all of those types of things. So it plays into it from a leadership perspective. It plays into it even with the entry level people from the, you know, that perspective. Yeah.
Preach. It's so important. And that's, you know, one of my clients, she was in one of those positions where she just wasn't able to influence, you know, like there's just a point where you just have to say, you know what, this isn't going to happen. And she actually moved on and she doubled her salary in her next job, which I was so dang proud of her, because she knew it was time to go. She aligned what was happening with her values and her mission, and she stepped out and she went to this new amazing company. And she just literally was like, hey, I recognize that they didn't have this process in place. So she started to write a quick manual on it. All of a sudden, she comes into this team and she, in a very servant, humble way, has said like, hey, I have some expertise in this. So I just wrote a quick manual on how to do this thing, and hopefully it'll help the rest of the team. And right away, she's able to gain this influence, and just in a really humble, and that was humble, hungry, and smart. That was the three things that she needed to be. And she showed it right off the bat. And it was powerful for her.
Wow. It looks like we might be live again. I don't know, because we just got another comment.
Hi, Lincoln.
Suresh says, Suresh says 5 to 1 in cybersecurity is definitely not cool. I love the huge impact Magna is making for women in cybersec. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's from earlier. So you mentioned that you sometimes coach men. What are some of the ways that you would coach men to be allies
Oh
for
gosh.
women in the field?
I've actually never coached men on that before, but I
Okay.
would just, in general, I would say the same way that I coach women to be allies for women, right? If a woman's not being heard at the table, excuse me, Renee had an idea. I think we should hear it out, right? Just acknowledging that someone else is speaking, make sure to stand it up. Never steal ideas. Never steal ideas from somebody else. That will bite you later. Don't do it. You reap what you sow. Um, and I would say, making sure that you are picking the best people to work for you, regardless of their gender, and checking yourself, right? Am I picking somebody because I think that they're taller? Again, look at King Arthur. This is a great example. Nobody would have picked a 15-year-old scrawny kid to be king, but he had the heart of a king. So look at people's behavior and their and the influence that they have been able to wield and grow, and make sure that you're promoting the right people.
Every time you talk about the King Arthur story, just recently I was reading to my children the Bible story, David and Goliath, and it's that same, they're like, how could he take out Goliath, and he was an expert in that space. And it when it leads up to the story where they talk about, oh, he walks in and he says, I've done this a million times, I've done this with bears, I've done this with, he just says, this is my thing. And when he takes the slingshot and boom, Goliath falls down, it's the same exact, it goes back to the same thing that you're talking about in terms of being that solution, that problem solver in that space.
Exactly.
And he's scrawny. He's again scrawny. I think
Small
he was
kid.
about 15 too, right? Something like that. He was a teenager.
But here's some interesting points: is that Saul tries to put his armor on David,
Mm-hmm.
and David. Can you imagine trying to do the job that he had to do with somebody else, with the weight of someone else's expectations literally on you like that? He said, I can't do it like this. He knew what his strengths were. He knew what his values were, and he knew what he needed to do. And that's one of those areas that's a strong way where you say, I know what my values are. I know what my strengths are. I'm going to say no to this. I'm going to say yes to this. I'm going to go do it. So he had to know. And again, how he gets into Saul's favor isn't by, all of a sudden doing something strange that he's never done before. He goes and plays his music because that was his gift, right? Know your superpower. Mine is goal setting, being creative, right? So use your superpower to solve problems, to come in. Don't let other people put the weight of their expectations on you. You know what your goal is. You know what your mission is. Freaking go for it.
I have a random question that I just thought of as you were talking about this. One of the things that Renee and I always discuss has to do with like neurodiversity, but then also recently that's been coming up is unconscious bias.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever coach when you coach, do you ever ensure that people think about these unconscious biases that they have and how they might affect their performance?
I'm going to be honest with you, and the answer to that is no, I haven't. What I usually typically coach on are how to make the shift from individual contributor to leader, right? And so a lot of that is about acknowledging where you are in the leadership cycle, and how to gain influence, how to be a servant leader, transactional leadership, things like that. But I'll tell you that over the last several weeks, it has been something that I found that I really need to educate myself on. And it's hit me in two ways, because my son is biracial. And so this is always, something that I think about for him, but I've had to learn how to talk about it differently in two ways, which is one for my kid and one for the women that I'm coaching, because it's a huge issue that we all need to address within ourselves. So that is an area for me to humbly admit that I definitely need to grow in as a mom, and this goes back to being an exceptional mom, being an exceptional leader. Like, these are things I need to train myself on for sure.
Yeah. I think it's across the board. The kinds of the kinds of and I think all of us have. I learned something this morning, reading a LinkedIn profile about signs, street signs in Australia, and what these street signs meant. And it was, very long story short, it was around Indigenous people. In that, I guess at dawn, Indigenous people could not cross these particular streets,
Oh, geez.
and there would be someone cracking a whip, walking around in time. And so that was just brand new to me. It was just such a, I thank person for this history, and it's so new, and you learn so much. And I think especially unconscious bias, I mean, it's so deep, and it runs so, half of the time you don't even realize what's going on. And I remember taking some classes, because us HR people, this is what we do, Chris.
Yeah.
So you're talking about unconscious bias, and they always show that picture of the iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg, and then beneath the iceberg, like all that's going on. So most people, either A, within themselves, or even or looking at someone else, you're seeing the tip, and there's so many things that are happening beneath the surface. And so really trying to be educated, on all different levels. And I consistently educate myself to be able to tell my children, this is what's going on in the world. This is why, go back in history, become a student of history. I welcome when people say, oh, this is what happened in the 50s. This is what, seen this in the 60s when Dr. Dan was on. And I said, Dan, give us wisdom, because many times, it's bubbling up from things happening, years and years ago. And these are the people who were walking during Martin Luther King. We were on last week with Alan Alford, and he talked about his mom walking, marching with King. And so, going back and saying, hey, tell me your personal experience of what happened when this was happening. But overall, when it comes to unconscious, I'm going off on different tangents, but when it comes to unconscious bias in particular, just being a student, being a constant student is just key. And, I would ask everyone to just continuously learn and seek out all types of topics, just constantly and consistently, because unconscious bias, especially in hiring and leadership, it's definitely a space that I think we need to just touch into more.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, one of the reasons that I brought it up, it has to be, especially as a leader, you have to realize that different people communicate in different ways.
Yes.
So, for example, some cultures are very fact forward, very in your face, while other cultures are very submissive and quiet. And you have to be able to recognize that those are both cultural traits and try to enable them to be part of the team when they might be passive, or maybe have them let others participate when they're like in your face. So that was the reason for the question, because as a new leader, you might not have had to think about that before, but now that you're trying to blend the skills of many people together into your team, it becomes critical.
And you actually hit on exactly what I was going to say in sort of a different way, but I think the opposite of humility is ignorance. Humility admits that what you don't know, right? That's saying, I don't know everything. I can be taught, I can be led. I'm going to rely on others. And on the flip side of that, you've got ignorance, where you, in some cases, are willfully unaware, and you are purposefully not acknowledging others. So in leadership, I think in life in general, what we all need to do is recognize that people experience and perceive life differently, and their backgrounds are different. And this, in leadership, means that you acknowledge diversity in a way that you recognize that this is a best thing for your team, that you are going to bring new ideas, new ways of thinking about things, new thought processes. You're going to generate a whole different positive culture by being inclusive, and by inviting diversity versus saying, this is my way of doing this. This is my perception of how it has to be done. This is how I think about things, and this is the way it is. That's ignorance. And that kind of leader is the leader none of us want to work for, right? None of us wants to work for the person that says, this is the way, right? We call them micromanagers. So,
right.
So being humble, and I got smacked down hard in 2014. I was in grad school for clinical mental health, and I was taking a class, and I am fortunate enough that my Merlin happens to be an African-American woman, and she's my favorite person in the world. And in grad school, my Merlin also was an African-American woman, and she and I were taking this cultural, like how to counsel culturally diverse people. And the professor was a PhD, and she was an African-American. And Diane is sitting next to me. She's got 3 master's degrees, and she's also African-American. And they're talking about how counseling somebody who's a Latina versus African-American versus a Jehovah's Witness, whatever, is so different. And I kind of got up on myself, and I'm like, why is it so different between black and white? Like, we're all the same. We're all human. Why would you counsel somebody differently? And they started talking about racism. And I'm from this DC area, right? Where it's a big mixing bowl. And I don't want to say I say everybody the same, but I want to say, like, I am not as focused on diversity, like, in that way. And they both were like, let me tell you about your white privilege. And they just smacked me down, and probably the rest of the class. And I just sat there like, okay. I didn't know this. This is a whole brand new way for me to look at life. And if I hadn't been humble enough to take the smackdown, then I wouldn't have learned. But I had to take the smack, and it was a smackdown from these 2 women. We're like, let me tell you. And it totally opened my way of thinking and helped me to understand that in leading teams, in life in general, like appreciating people's differences and celebrating them and allowing people to work differently and serve differently and lead differently is literally the best thing that we can do.
Well, I think that, Chris and I, we talk about this all the time, and we talk about diversity of thought. And this segues right into that, because when you are bringing in people with all different walks of life, so different, if you, the surface stuff, even so you do gender, age, race, sexual orientation, all that stuff. And even if that alone, you get some diversity of thought. When socioeconomic background, where people have, people where they've grown up, different international, backgrounds, all these different things. And you just come up with so many more ideas. And I was reading just this morning another statistic around diverse teams and how much more profitable they are, how much more of problem solving they are when you have these diverse teams, because everyone's looking at it, everyone's bringing their perspective. Like, there's no way, even if, Chris is grew up in the Caribbean, but still we don't have the same, I didn't grow up in the Caribbean, my mom did, but we don't have the same experiences. He brings such a different experience to the table. So it's just so many, it's like, it boggles my mind as to why you wouldn't want to get someone else's perspective. Like, I think one of the things that leaders, and I'm jumping in here on your topic, one of the best things that leaders can do is just like be an ear, like listen and look at people's perspectives and always think about walking in that person's shoes. Because I think that in and of itself will humble you. Like, if people out here were, how can I walk in Sarah's shoes? How can I be a single mom with a 3-year-old son, with a business, with a working full time, with this? Then if something happens, you're like, wow, what would I do if I was in that scenario? What if I'm sitting in Chris's scenario with a 5-year-old and I have all this stuff, and I'm a professor and I have all these things going on? Something happens, you're like, whoa, what would I do if that were me? Would I be able to handle that? Could I juggle these things?
Yeah.
And I think just pure, just taking a step back and thinking about what it is putting yourself in someone else's shoes truly means. I think that in and of itself, if people took a couple of minutes to just understand other people and what they might be going through, and you don't even know, like, that I know the tip of the iceberg of some of the stuff that you might be going through. The tip, not really what's going on, right? All the things that's happening,
And
so
that's servant leadership. That's what that is. And that's also a roundtable principle, if you think about it, right? Arthur is the king. He's the king. Why would he create a round table? So he would set himself as an equal to other people. He's sitting with you, right? That's what a leader does, is they sit with you. They walk with you, and the leader's obviously going to get things out of the way and has the bigger picture of the mission. But it's that that humility, that humble spirit, that humble heart that says, I don't know everything. I cannot imagine what you're going through, Renee, with having 3 kids at home and doing this and this and this. How can I serve you? What can I do for you that's going to allow you to excel and exceed? And circling back to cybersecurity, even, this is why it is so daggone important for businesses to hire diversely, to seek it out, like, as I would say, a number one hiring priority for every cybersecurity organization should be to seek diversity in their hiring, because, like you said, it brings out so many opportunities for creative problem solving. And what do we need right now to secure our systems and our networks and our critical infrastructure is we need creativity. We need to stay a step ahead of the bad guys. So all of us have a duty. It's not a nice to have. We have a duty to look for ways to increase and improve diversity and inclusion, and to understand our unconscious bias and to address it head on, straight on.
Even things like economic backgrounds. For those that might not have had the resources, they're very scrappy. They find ways to do things.
100%.
And if you don't have those types of people in your team, you might look over simple problems that could be solved by finding a new way to look at it rather than throwing a new blinky light at it.
Yep. Love that. You're so right. You're so right.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Sarah, do you see it is we're coming up on almost 45 minutes. So I have one question, and I think Chris will have another question, and we'll wrap after this, but we have to have you back because this is so relevant right now. So maybe in a couple of weeks, we can have you come back on and do a part 2, or even maybe next week. We can have you do part 2 in the leadership series. But I wanted to ask you about, because you work with women so much, and I know that you have this, you've worked extensively in the cybersecurity space and cybersecurity education. And for those of you that don't know, Sarah is, could go to her LinkedIn profile. I'll make sure to tag her, as she does so much amazing work in the cybersecurity space specifically. When it comes to leadership for women versus men, or the things that you see, what would you say are like the top 2 to 3 differences or challenges that women face that men don't, or you see women doing that men don't do, or that they should overcome or focus on that men don't?
Confidence is the first thing. I don't know very many men who would hem and haw about asking for a promotion that they were promised. Right? If you know that your boss said next year, I'm going to move you up to this level, and it's been 3 years and you're still at the same level, what's happening here? So I would say, make sure that you are humble, but confident. And, not that long ago, it really wasn't that long ago, one of the women that I happened to work for at that time, she said to me something along the lines of, well, you seem like you're really looking for chances to be the boss. Like, it was so bad. And I said, I refuse to apologize for wanting to move my career forward and expand my leadership.
Oh, I got smacked down for that.
You would never say that to a man. Never.
I was told I was too much of a change agent.
Oh, Lord have mercy. So I would say, work on your confidence. Work on your confidence. The second thing is we all know this is true, this imposter syndrome, where a man looks at a job description and he's like, I could do 25% of this. I am the perfect candidate. And he goes for it. And a woman is like, I can do everything on this list, but I only have 9 years of experience, not 10. Oh, I can't do it. Yes, you can. So take a bold step. Tony Robbins, who I love, not everybody loves him, but I love him. But he's so dang right. When he says, you must take massive action. If you want for things to change, you must take massive actions. So part of being a high performer is being courageous, right? So I'm back to courage again. So courage, and also looking for ways to work in your superpower. Figure out what your superpower is and build it. Build it. Have in your career plan, you need to know what are the top 3 skills that you need to have for the next 1 to 3 years. And you need to be working on those skills every single day. Every day have personal development or professional development on your calendar. Make yourself your professional development your priority. If you don't know what those things are, you're never going to be at the top of your game. And then you also need to know what are the top 3 skills that you need to have 3 to 5 years out. You need to have a plan to get those skills, right? Always be working on moving your career forward, because the sad part is not as many people are going to be looking out for you.
Got to do it yourself.
You got to do it yourself. And that's why tenacity is one of my foundational words, because I know that if you're going to achieve a goal, you have to go at it. You have to have a plan. I'm going to move my laptop for a second. I can't tell which side I'm going for. Okay, here I'm going over here. This is my battle board. This has what I'm doing every month for 6 months out. I know exactly what I need to do this month to make a success. And you need to have that same thing. Because again, nobody else is going to do it for you. You got to know what you got to do. And you've got to prioritize your professional development. I'm yelling at everyone. I'm sorry I'm yelling, but I'm passionate.
No, please. I love it. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was going to say, kind of to refine on that and pivot of like the last question that I usually ask. If you had to refine all of that advice to one sage piece of advice for someone looking to make the next step in their career, what would that be?
One piece of advice. Focus on your future. We are very good at rehearsing what our faults are. The argument that we had, the bad choice that we made, we play it over and over in our mind. Play your future over and over in your mind. Every day. What does that look like? Practice it. When I wake up in the morning, I say, thank you, Jesus, that I'm awake. And then I say, Sarah Moffat is the CEO of her own company. What's the CEO doing today? Hey, what's the CEO doing today? CEO doesn't have time to get stuck down in minutia. So focus on your future. That would be my key advice for everybody.
Awesome. Sarah, are you coming back next week?
I am coming back next week. Yes, I would love to.
Because I'm going to post that as soon as this is done. We would love to have you back because LinkedIn Live broke. and we want you. This is out there. It's on YouTube. We're going to put it out. We're going to post it and everything else. But I want to make sure that people are aware and they know about what you do, the amazing programs that you have, and how you can help more people grow in their careers, grow into leadership, because this is what this is all about. Like, everyone asks questions around this growth, and this was so informative and so insightful. And I want to make sure that people are on and they're able to ask their questions and learn more about your program. Quickly talk about your program before we jump in like 1 minute. Right
okay.
Before we come off.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I would love to do next week. I do have to check my calendar. So just want to let everybody know who's watching. I have 10 spots left for my group coaching, which launches on the 22nd, I think. And so if you go to my website, which is leadingladies.co, and click the coaching, group coaching. You'll see all the details. But especially for people who are breaking into cybersecurity and are at that mid to senior to expert level, when I wanted an executive coach, I could not afford it because I'm not an executive yet. And so I always want to make sure that everybody who wants coaching has the opportunity to get it. So, so it's really important that I let everybody know group coaching is a great way to do that. So I'm thrilled to come back and we can talk about high performance or whatever you want next week. But you guys are doing such a wonderful service for the community and giving out such wonderful information. So I just want to applaud you both for your commitment and your tenacity and the creative way that you're solving these problems. It's really wonderful.
Well, thank you.
So we will have Sarah back, if not next Tuesday, very soon. 11-ish Eastern is when we do our Breaking Into Cybersecurity 2.0, 11-ish, because Sarah has kids, I have kids, Chris has kids. Usually my kids making all the craziness in the background. In any event, it was great having you on, Sarah. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you soon. And everyone else, we will see you next time. So take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.